The night her engagement was cancelled, the city felt colder than it ever had before. Not because of the weather, but because everything she believed about love, security, and her future collapsed in a single moment. Invitations were already printed, relatives informed, dreams carefully arranged like fragile glass ornaments. And then, without warning, it ended. Not with shouting or drama, but with silence, avoidance, and a message that said everything without explaining anything. In that moment, she learned how quickly promises could disappear and how heavy humiliation could feel when it settled on the chest. If you believe that kindness, second chances, and unexpected fate can still change lives, pause for a second here and support the channel Kindness Diaries by liking, commenting, sharing this story, and subscribing, because stories like this exist to remind us that hope often arrives disguised as loss. She spent the next few days moving through her apartment like a shadow of herself. The walls that once held laughter now echoed with unanswered questions. Friends tried to comfort her, family offered advice, but none of it touched the quiet storm growing inside her. What hurt most wasn't just the broken engagement, but the way she felt discarded, as if her worth had been decided by someone else's convenience. Each morning she woke up with a heavy chest, and each night she fell asleep wondering how everything could fall apart so neatly. Society whispered its judgments loudly, pity in people's eyes hurt more than cruelty. She stopped attending gatherings, stopped dressing up, stopped dreaming. In the middle of that emotional chaos, an impulsive decision began to take shape. It wasn't logical or planned. It was born from exhaustion, from a deep desire to reclaim control over her life. She didn't want sympathy anymore. She didn't want to be the woman people whispered about. She wanted to choose something for herself, even if it seemed reckless. That was when she noticed him, a man who had been part of the background of her life for months without her ever truly seeing him. He worked nearby, lived simply, dressed modestly, and carried a calm that felt strangely grounding. People described him as poor, ordinary, unremarkable. And maybe that was exactly why she felt safe around him. Their interactions were brief and uneventful at first, shared spaces and quiet moments that asked for nothing. There was no pressure, no expectation, no performance. He listened without interrupting, without trying to fix her. He never asked about her broken engagement, never pushed for details. In his presence, she felt invisible in the best possible way, free from labels and judgment. Slowly, an idea took root in her heart, one she barely dared to acknowledge. What if she chose a life that wasn't based on status, appearances, or carefully constructed plans? What if she chose peace instead? The decision shocked everyone. Friends tried to reason with her, family members panicked, warnings came from every direction. They reminded her of her education, her background, her future prospects. They spoke of financial struggle, uncertainty, and regret. But none of them could see what she felt inside. She wasn't chasing romance or rebellion. She was running toward dignity, toward a life where she wouldn't feel like an object being evaluated. She married him quietly, without celebration, without luxury. It felt unreal, almost like stepping into someone else's life. Yet as the days passed, something unexpected happened. She began to breathe again. Life with him was simple, sometimes uncomfortably so. The apartment was small, the routines modest, the comforts limited. There were moments when she questioned her choice, especially during nights when reality pressed heavily against her expectations. But he never made her feel like a burden. He worked hard, returned home tired but present, and treated her with a respect she hadn't realized she was missing before. He valued small things, shared meals, quiet mornings, the peace of routine. Slowly, her wounds began to heal, not dramatically, but gently, like a bruise fading over time. Still, challenges were constant. Money was tight. She learned to budget, to compromise, to let go of habits formed in a different life. Pride had to be swallowed more than once. There were days when frustration sat between them like an unspoken guest. Yet even then, there was no cruelty, no blame. He faced hardship with quiet resilience, never complaining, never allowing bitterness to define him. She admired that strength, even when she didn't fully understand it. What she didn't know was that beneath his modest lifestyle lay a carefully guarded truth. He wasn't poor by circumstance, but by choice. Long before their paths crossed, he had stepped away from a world of wealth, power, and constant manipulation. He had inherited more money than most people would see in a lifetime, but it came wrapped in betrayal, control, and loss. He had learned early that wealth could isolate, that people loved the comfort he provided more than the person he was. So he walked away, choosing anonymity over influence, simplicity over excess. He never planned to reveal this truth, believing that a quiet life was the only way to preserve his peace. The reveal came unexpectedly, not as a grand confession, but through a moment of crisis. A legal issue, an emergency that demanded his presence in a world he had left behind. She watched as people addressed him with deference, as doors opened effortlessly, as his identity unfolded in ways she never imagined. Confusion turned to disbelief, disbelief to a flood of emotions she couldn't name. She felt shock, betrayal, relief, and fear all at once. Questions raced through her mind, but beneath them was one terrifying thought: had everything been a lie? When the truth settled, so did clarity. She realized that nothing about their life together had been false. The simplicity was real. The respect was real. The kindness was real. He had never used his wealth to control or impress her. He had loved her as an equal, without conditions. In that realization, something powerful shifted inside her. She understood that the man she married wasn't defined by his bank account, but by the values he lived by every day. And for the first time in her life, she felt chosen not for her status, but for her soul. Their relationship deepened after that, not because of money, but because of honesty. She saw his past, his scars, his reasons. He saw her strength, her vulnerability, her courage to rebuild herself from shame. Together, they learned that true security isn't built on wealth or social approval, but on trust, patience, and shared growth. The life they built didn't suddenly turn extravagant. They kept their modest routines, their quiet mornings, their simple joys. Wealth became a tool, not an identity. As time passed, she often thought about how close she came to losing herself forever in bitterness. How the worst moment of her life became the doorway to the most meaningful chapter she could have imagined. Her cancelled engagement, once a source of pain, became a reminder that rejection can sometimes be protection. That endings, however cruel they feel, can lead us exactly where we need to be. If this story touched something deep inside you, if it reminded you that kindness and courage still matter in a world obsessed with appearances, please take a moment near the end to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Diaries so more stories like this can reach hearts that are hurting. And before this story ends, I have one special request for you: comment below with one word that describes how this journey made you feel. In the end, she didn't just find love. She found herself. And sometimes, that is the greatest wealth of all.